Welcome to the part 2 of this video series, and in this video series I am trying to explain how to integrate large language models into the web applications. As a part of this video series, I will be showing how to develop a food blog where the large language model will generate the content, and also large language model will generate the formatting information. In the part one, I have explained the design of the application, and I also explained the design of the prompt template and also the design of the response which we are expecting from the large language model. In this part, let's look in detail on how to design the prompt and how to create the custom data which we will be using to fine-tune the large language model. Let's open the Chat-GPT to understand how to create or design the prompt template. So my approach in creating a prompt template is iterative approach. So I start with a small prompt. I will check how the Chat GPT is responding, and based on the response of the Chat GPT, I either change the prompt or add more information to it, and I'll repeat this process until I get the response what I'm expecting. So let me show you the process which I used to come up with this prompt. So let me show you the final prompt. So the final prompt is this one. Uh, if you see here, right? This is the final prompt. It's a huge one. Let me copy and paste it here so that you guys can see everything, the prompt. So if you see here, the prompt is huge, right? But I started off small and came up with this big, huge prompt. So at first, I explained ChatGPT what am I trying to achieve. So I asked ChatGPT that I am trying to create posts for the food blog, and I also provided the ChatGPT the JSON format I'm expecting in the response. So I have given a little bit information here, and based on this prompt template, based on this prompt, ChatGPT provided the response in the JSON format. But this is not the final response which I'm expecting, but this is a good start. So, and next, then I asked ChatGPT a different format where I have added some information like type, sequence, and I have added like 8 different kinds of objects to be included in the JSON response. And ChatGPT provided a response the way I expected. So, but still, this is not the final prompt which I'm expecting. So let's see what I did next. So I asked ChatGPT to refactor the above JSON. Here, if you see here, I asked ChatGPT to refactor the above JSON array, and I asked specifically to add this object to each object in the array, right? So I asked refactor the above JSON array where each object of the JSON array will have the formatting object, where the formatting object is this one. So I'm just telling ChatGPT to add a formatting object to the above response. So now, as expected, ChatGPT provided a response where I have all the objects, and within the objects, ChatGPT added this formatting JSON object. So next, then I have summed up everything, whatever I have added here in this prompt. So I asked ChatGPT to create something or give me a response in a JSON format. I have given the JSON format. I have explained that there should be a formatting object for every JSON object in the JSON array, and I also provided the dish name here. And then if you see here, ChatGPT did not give information in the text. It's yes, it is giving a formatting object. It's giving type sequence number as expected, but it did not give the information which I needed in the text. So I have tried multiple times, but no matter what I do, it's not giving the value in the text. So what I did is in the end, let me show you what I did in the end to make it work. So in the end, all I did is I have added this line. Your task is to add the content in the field text of every object. And as soon as I added this line, keeping everything the same, I just added this line, and now ChatGPT start giving the response in the text field as well. So I have copied this prompt and executed with the different dish names, and every single time it started giving the data in the text now. So after I ran the text for 5 or 10 times, and once I see that response is consistent from the chat GPT, that's when I uh, decided that this prompt template, whatever you're seeing here, is the final one. Let me explain on how I am planning to create the custom data. Now we have the prompt template, and we know that ChatGPT can give the response as expected. So now I want around 500 different kinds of responses from the ChatGPT, and each response is about different dish name. So to get the 500 different dish names, I took the help of ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT that give me 50 Japanese dish names, and I also asked 50 South Indian dish names, 50 North Indian, 50 Chinese, and I just added as ChatGPT until I get 500 to 650 names. So once I asked ChatGPT like this, I have copied and pasted everything in this file called dishes. If you see, I have 650 different dish names. So this is a start of creating my custom data. So the idea here is I have to create a code which actually replaces a dish name from this file into the prompt template and send the prompt template to the chat GPT so that chat GPT can respond, and I'm going to capture those responses. My idea is not only to change the dish name but also to change the formatting object. Okay, let me show you my prompt. So this is the prompt. So I can easily replace the dish name in the prompt with the dishes which are in the file. But I also want to make this formatting object to be dynamic, uh, because I don't want to train my large language model with the same formatting information. I want to train my large language model with as dynamic data as possible. So I have to write a code. Somehow I have to write a code to change this information. So I asked ChatGPT to help me out with that. So let me show you what I asked ChatGPT to achieve this dynamic behavior. If you see this prompt, I have used the same iterative approach I used to create the prompt template. So I asked ChatGPT a simple question, and based on the ChatGPT's response, I change my prompt template or add more information to it until I get the expected response. So I asked the ChatGPT to write a Python code which creates a schema with these values, with different possible values. So the ChatGPT gave this code. I copied the code and I did run in a VS Code. I don't like the output. So then I asked something else. Like I asked ChatGPT to make the code more dynamic. So it did give a different code. I copied the code. I run in the VS Code. I did not like the response. So then No matter what I ask or how I ask, how I change the prompt, the ChatGPT response is not as expected. So then I decided to change the complete prompt. So I gave a prompt like this. Let me show you. So I said that make the code dynamic. I mean the code above here and automated. And I said ChatGPT that I'm gonna use this for unit testing. Then it just came up with another code. When I used this code, it didn't work as expected. So in the end, I just asked ChatGPT to give me 100 valid test samples to use in unit testing, and then it gave me 100 samples for unit testing. If you see, all these samples are different. So now what I did is I used this code to generate my custom data. Let me show you my notebook. So so in the first cell, if you see, these are all the path of the files which I'm generating. We will get into this later, but whatever the chat GPT just generated here, I copied and pasted here. Okay, so if you see this, let me run this. If you see this, chat GPT gave me 57 samples. I asked for 100, it tried to generate 100, but it only gives 57. So that's fine for me as of now. And then if you see here, this is the prompt template which I used or created using the help of ChatGPT. But there is some change which I did. If you see here, wherever I want to change or replace the values, I have had it like this: the schema 1, schema 2, schema 3, and also wherever I want to replace the dish name, I have named it a dish name. So the idea here is the dish name from the dishes file will be replaced here, and the schemas from here will be replaced here. So the code to replace the schemas and the dishes is also given to me by the ChatGPT. So I have asked ChatGPT to replace the formatting object of each JSON object in the provided array. So it gave me a code, and this code, I didn't like it. I mean, it doesn't give the expected output. So I keep changing the prompt until I get my expected uh, way of response. So in the end, I asked ChatGPT something like this. So ask ChatGPT to run a code for 500 times, and every loop should create a 5 random numbers ranging from 0 to 70. So the idea behind asking here is I have 500 dishes, maybe I have a 650, so I can replace this 500 with 650 in the code. But the idea here is there should be a loop 500 times because I have 500 dishes in the file, and every single time in every loop it has to create 5 random numbers, and the random numbers are from 0 to 70. And this 0 to 70 because the size of these samples, the unit testing samples, are should come between 0 to 70. When I check the length, it's only 57. So this 0 to 70 is not actually 0 to 70. In my code, it is 0 to 56. So that's what my idea is. My idea is to have a for loop which actually loops 500 times, and within each for loop, it creates 5 random numbers 0 to 56, so that I can randomly pick one of these and replace with the schemas, which is the schema 3, schema 4, and schema 5. And if you see here, the exact code, whatever the code ChatGPT has provided, I am using it here. The random seed 42, 500, all these things, right? Here the mean value ChatGPT is giving 0 and 70 because that's what I asked. But 0 to 70 is not what I want. I want 0 to 55. So that part I changed. And if you see here, my code, what it's doing is it is reading the dishes from the dishes file from here. It's reading the dishes from the dishes file, and it is generating a random values, and it is trying to replace the schemas pulled from here into the template and adding that back to an array. So let me show you. So let me run this. When I run this, it's adding the schemas back to this array, right? So there are like 650 dishes, so this schema or this array should have 650 elements in it. So if i if I print the length of this array, if I print the length of this array, you should see 650. If you see here, the length is 650, and that's because I have 650 dishes, and I have 650 dishes, and this loop is based on the number of rows in this dishes file. So 650 times, and every row it is generating 5 random values, and those values are used to pull the data from here and replace with the schemas here. Okay, and then appending, once the replace is done, I'm appending that element into this array, and now I'm with this array. If you want me to show you how the each element looks like, let me print that as well. I'm just printing the 450th element. So this is how it looks like. If you see here, the schema of these things are 450th element versus the 451th element will be different. Okay, so this will be different because I want this to be as dynamic as possible for fine-tuning my large language model. Okay, all right, so now what I did is I created this array. Now I have write all the information in this array into a file, and this is a code. This is a basic Python code which actually writes data into the file. So I I use this array. If you see formatted template list array, whatever the elements in this array are being dumped into a file, and the file which I generated is here, the prepare data set here, whatever you're seeing here. So each row represent one element of that array. So because there are 650 elements, you should be seeing 650 rows, right? So now I have 650 different prompts. Now the next thing I have to do is I need to convert these 650 prompts into OpenAI. So OpenAI, which is a Chat-GPT, has its own specific prompt template. So somehow I need to convert this into the OpenAI template. Let me show you the OpenAI template. So this is the ChatGPT's template, and the system, the role is system, and the content is the actual prompt which we are trying to send to the ChatGPT. So now somehow I need to use this 650 rows or convert these 650 rows into OpenAI format. And for that, what I did is I read the data from this formatted template list. So this one, the formatted template list, and writing or converting each line into this OpenAI related format, and then writing it to a file. So by the end of this code execution, you should see a file called OpenAI input dataset. That's the name which I'm giving. You guys can give whatever you want. But by the end of this loop, we will see a file which has OpenAI related prompts. So let me run this one. Right. So I just did. Let's see the right. So now if you see here, all 650 of them are converted into OpenAI specific format now. So now we have a OpenAI specific prompt. Now all we need to do is pass this prompt to the OpenAI and get the response, capture those response, create our custom data, and then fine tune our application. Let me show you how to send this information to the OpenAI and get the response from the OpenAI. So this is how we can send the data to OpenAI. You need a key. So when you create an account with the OpenAI, they will actually provide you with a key, and that key is used to interact with the OpenAI. And so you just have to generate a client like this. This is the code to generate a OpenAI client, and then you can use this client to create a response for your prompts. So if you see here, what I'm doing is, this is OpenAI input JSON file, right? So I'm reading each row from this file where we have just created this. So I'm reading each row and sending that row to the OpenAI, capturing the responses, and then writing back that responses to another file. So let me show you what I mean. So this is where I'm reading each row, and if you see here, this is where I'm passing that each row as a JSON object. Okay, so each line is being read from here, from this file, and every single line is loaded as a JSON object, and then this JSON object is sent in this message. So how did I get this code? This code I did not come up with this code. It's an OpenAI which gave me this code. So how do I get this code? So when you create your account in the OpenAI, there is something called playground here. If you go to the playground, on the right hand side, you can select which model you want. So let's say you want 3.5 turbo 16K context length model. You can click this, and then you can check the view code, and this is, here it is, right? So you just copy this code and paste it here and replace these messages with your prompt template. Okay, so here they're saying this is what needs to be sent in the messages, right? But you can replace with your prompt template. Okay, then once you execute this part of the code, you will get a response. So what I'm doing is I have created one JSON object here before even getting a response from OpenAI. If you see here, that JSON object has two keys. One is the messages, one is the response. The messages is what I'm sending it to the OpenAI, and the response is whatever the OpenAI responding to us. And the reason I'm doing this, because in the future I want to create or use this data to create my own custom data, and that's the reason I'm capturing in a JSON object like this. So the messages, the JSON object which I'm passing into the OpenAI, then OpenAI response, and I'm adding this response. This is how you extract the response from the OpenAI response. Then once you get this response, I will add this to this JSON object, right? So now once all the loop is completed, when I say all the loop is completed, all the rows in this file are completed, then I write these responses back to another file, and that file I named it as this one. If you see here, OpenAI response dataset.jsonl. Let me show you that file name. Let me show you that file. So if you see here in the messages, I'm capturing what I am sending it to the OpenAI, and in the response, let me show you the response, or let me copy one JSON object. Let me copy one JSON object so that it's easier for you guys to see. All right. If you see here, the response. So I'm capturing the response as separate key within the JSON object, and this is the response I got from the Chat-GPT. I have the prompt which I used to ask Chat-GPT. Now I also have a response which I got from the Chat-GPT. Now using these two, I can create a custom data set. And let me show you how to create a custom data set. So I am using the alpaca format. You guys can use Mixtral or Mistral format to create a custom data set. I like alpaca, so I'll use the alpaca. This one works for me. Uh, so if you don't know what alpaca format is, it's just the first part is an instruction to the large language model saying that just give me a response, and then there will be, this is a special token where you put your prompt, and this is another special token where you put your response. Because you are fine tuning it, you should give your response here, but during the inference, what happens is you just give a prompt, and this response is predicted by the large language model. So uh, this is the alpaca format. So now I have to convert this response from the ChatGPT into the alpaca format so that I can fine tune my large language model. So for that, I have written a custom code where, if you see here, this code will read every single row from this file. The file is this one where I have the responses and the prompt from the ChatGPT, and then I'm appending or creating into the alpaca format. So I have one part of this code which is converting into the mixture format, but I have another code which actually converts into the alpaca format. So if you go through this code, you can see that I'm reading this file, and every single line I'm loading as a JSON object, and I'm passing that JSON object into this convert to alpaca format function which I have created. Let me show you that function, this function. So this function takes a prompt and the response, and the prompt is replaced here and the response is replaced here. So all this code is doing is just take the prompt, add it to the template, and take the response and add it to the template. So there is one thing which I did here is, if you see the response from the Chat-GPT, let me show you here. If you see the response from the Chat-GPT here, it actually starts with these 3 ticks and a JSON and new line character, right? So I have to remove these from here, from the start of the file, from the start of the string, and also it appends those 3 ticks here and a new line. So I have to remove that. So to remove that, I have created another custom function. If you see here, this is a function which actually creates it, and this one is also generated by ChatGPT. I just asked ChatGPT that uh, write a Python code to remove this from the start of the string and 3 ticks from the end of the string. So ChatGPT gave me this code. Okay. So now I'm passing the response in this function, which removes those whatever the special characters provided by ChatGPT, and gives it to my function, which in turn converts into the alpaca format. And I capture all the prompts and converts into this file. Let me show you the file name. This file, which is called alpaca fine-tuned dataset. And if you see here, in this data set, I am appending the complete template, right, which has a prompt and also the response under the key text. So if we are fine tuning using the transformers Hugging Face transformers, then the Hugging Face transformers by default it expects the training data to be under the text key. So that is the reason I have created the text, and value is the data which I'm using for the training. So now I have the custom data which I can use to train my large language model. So that's it for this video. And in the next video, I will show you how to train the large language model and how can we infer the large language model and how to use whatever the response which we received from the large language models in our web application. Thanks.